The wind howled outside, rattling the old wooden shutters of the house. It was one of those somber afternoons where the sky remained a dull gray, draping everything into darkness. Layla and Benjamin, both in their late 20s, were sitting on the worn-out couch, trying to pass the time. The electricity had gone out an hour ago, and the house was eerily quiet except for the occasional creak of the old floorboards. Their pet bird, a small, nervous parrot named Radino, was perched inside its cage, watching the room with wide, beady eyes. Suddenly, there was a sharp knock at the door, echoing through the silence. Benjamin frowned, glancing at Layla.
Were we expecting someone?
He asked. She shook her head, her face forming a puzzled frown.
Not that I know of.
Benjamin stood up and walked cautiously to the door. The knocking continued, more demanding this time. As the door swung open, his heart lurched with shock. On the doorstep stood a hyena, its fur rough and tangled, with a wicked glimmer in its eyes and a wide, crooked grin, exposing a set of sharp, yellowed teeth.
Well.
The hyena snarled in a deep, harsh voice.
Aren't you going to invite me in?
Before Benjamin could respond, the hyena pushed past him, wandering into the living room with an uneasy swagger. Layla gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Radino let out a startled squawk, flapping its wings frantically.
What are you?
Layla stammered, her voice trembling. The hyena chuckled, a low, menacing sound that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up.
Just a friend, here to liven things up. Looks like you two were getting a bit bored.
It turned to Boredom, who was now cowering in the corner of its cage.
And you must be the little bird. Don't worry, I don't bite. Much.
A shivering cold rushed down Benjamin's spine. Something was very wrong with this creature, and he had a sickening feeling that things were about to get much worse.
You need to leave.
He said, his voice shaky but firm.
Now.
The hyena's grin widened impossibly, stretching its lips back to reveal even more teeth.
But we're just getting started.
It snickered, the sound bouncing eerily off the walls in the small, dark room. It snapped its fingers, and the lights flickered back on, though the power was supposed to be out. The room appeared to change, the shadows growing longer, darker.
Let's play a game,
the hyena suggested, its eyes gleaming with a sadistic light. It reached into the air, pulling out a deck of cards seemingly from nowhere.
A simple one. If you win, I leave. If you lose, well, let's just say Vradino might not be so lucky.
Vradino screeched, flapping wildly in its cage, sensing the oncoming threat. Layla and Benjamin exchanged a terrified glance, but they knew they had no choice. The hyena's presence was overwhelming, suffocating the room with an intense, stifling sense of fear. They sat down at the table, the cards laid out before them. The game began, each card drawn causing a swarm of fear to run through them. The hyena observed with fixed eyes, its grin remaining unchanged. It didn't take long for them to realize that the game was rigged, the odds stacked impossibly against them. Every time they drew a card, it only brought them closer to their doom. With a final triumphant laugh, the hyena revealed the last card.
Looks like I win,
it said, its voice oozing with sinister delight. It stood up, towering over them, its shadow engulfing the room. Fradino let out one last desperate cry as the hyena turned its gaze toward the cage. The lights flickered again and then went out, plunging the house into darkness. The last thing Layla and Benjamin heard was the sound of the cage door creaking open, followed by a blood-curdling screech and the hyena's maniacal laughter. Then silence. When the lights flickered back on, the room was empty. The hyena was gone, but so was Fradino. Only an empty, blood-stained birdcage with a few feathers hanging in the air remained, and the faint smell of sulfur lingering in the air.